These have always been the same people I dealt with. I gave them all the qualities that you really needed. The first thing was the draft that came from Afande. I delivered that letter, I think it was on 4th June. Yes, that was 4th June when I took it. And it was handed to the minister himself because he was really there. And he had to take full charge of all the content in the letter. So he decided he would make a follow-up and he would come up with a gradient idea that could be turned into a practical project. So that is exactly what we're supposed to work on together.
Okay, now that seems to be very clear. Yeah, but I have to inform you that he never acted, if at all he delivered it as you can claim. But there was totally no response. And I tell you, even right now, I have not received a single response from that person. You have to know that.
Then I don't know exactly what happened because I took the actual responsibility as I was directed. And actually, Mr. Andrew Mwenda was part of that project. So they first shared the idea because I was told to go out and wait for them for like 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, I was called in and I was told, yes, they have digested the entire idea and it's going to be transformed into a practical project. So that is all I knew about that project. And I thought it is now in the right hands, so I could deliberately leave at the moment after settling it the way I was directed.
So now, if that is the case, so right now I have to tell you, we have to redo the project. I need you to write a letter. It should be addressed to the president and the chairman of the party. Then review the same content because I hope you still have the copy of that project letter you sent.
Yes, I have it exactly the way it was. I have it.
Then that's good. Now, you rewrite it. You come to me, I peruse through it. I do possible edits. Then we come up with a final piece that you can deliver to His Excellency.
Okay, then that is perfect, right? So. What should matter is I got the previous date, then I update it to the current date.
Actually, what you do, you book it for fast. It should be fast. That will be Tuesday. Let it be 1st September. I think that is the best way we can do it.
Okay, then thank you, sir. I'm going to do that.
Okay. So you are now free to leave. Now that you have told me that, now the project is very clear. So we can start from there.
Thank you very much, sir.
So, Professor, so you can come over.
So that is the boy you have been telling me about. You have talked about this young man, but it's very good. That is what I thought at all times. All the times I've dealt with that young man is very productive, very aggressive, and very articulate in what he does.
Exactly, only that I think Uncle Sam did not operate the way we were supposed to do. So that is why there was a setback on the entire project. Yeah, but I think he can rewrite that later because I have done as you had advised earlier. We'll rewrite it and we date it to be 1st September, which will be next Tuesday. I hope that is practical okay.
Very okay, very practical okay. Now we are looking at several things that are upcoming. The deliberations from His Excellency yesterday. You know we have a problem of this pandemic. But worse still, you know, why we might not handle it the way we would wish to do, except setting out security We tell the police, the military, the LGUs to man all roads with roadblocks to enable people to do the same. And also tell the KCCA enforcers to keep them roaming the arcades in town to see that the SOPs are always followed and people conform to them. Otherwise, the pandemic is spilling over and breaking the boundaries which were earlier designed, and you know where the source of the problem is.
Now we also have an apparent problem. People are starting to complain in the quarantine centers. You know, there is something we needed to observe before we embark on such projects. I don't know why you did not brief this to His Excellency, but we have to know the power of information flow. In the earlier days, you could easily contain information because there were particular gateways. You would either be the print media, the electronic media, and it was limited. The authors were known, the editors and the publishers were known of each and every information. So you could get gatekeepers on all avenues, but currently there are several gateways which have no gatekeepers. So that puts us in a dock that everything that gets done really gets public, and not just the public, it becomes international. It becomes a world concern, and we really need something to do with protecting some information, because looking at the campaign times in which we are, actually COVID-19, if not carefully handled, it may become the turning point to humiliate the entire regime, including the person of the president. Now look, we need a possible lockdown, but how are you going to start when teachers are committing suicide? They were promised to start the Ssaako where they would be supported, but there is particularly no projects already formed. And if you diversify all these teachers to go and absorb themselves in other activities, then what remains of the schools when they open? If many of them get into more productive ventures, do you think they can come back into education? And in any case, if they are not motivated, even them teachers, they need to be revising books, which they are not doing because they are not seeing any future. They are not seeing any productivity out of it. So those are the challenges now we are having, that just talking about a lockdown may cause an aggravated danger. It is what I'm looking at really.
Let me tell you that. Actually, even what you're saying is still very shallow. Very shallow, I have to tell you. It is simply more than that. You have no idea how disgruntled people are. I talked to my initiates who have been doing the field work, including those who have been spotting out candidates, particular candidates the fellowship should sponsor or should support in any way. And the results on the ground are very, very much disappointing to a person who has been in leadership and wants to be re-elected into power. The common man's view is really very pinching. I have to tell you this. First and foremost, we promised masks. And indeed, a very big section of the population have received these masks. But because there were some factors of chronism, you may find some village LC chairmen having thousands of masks in their homes, and they have deliberately refused to distribute them. We also have a section of local government candidates who are sitting on these masks and they are deliberately not distributing them. Another flop was the food relief. Whoever brought it into the picture most probably was Kanokeza Besigye, who must have been sent by someone to make it a campaign to influence the president to come into that. Otherwise, the food relief became a flop. because we talked about Kampala, and the central focus was in the slums, where actual accountability was very hard. The accountability in the slums was very hard. Now we have majority of the people living in Wakiso. No one in Wakiso ever received any food relief. And this is where we expected so many voters. And this is the population that can influx into the city in case of a civil disobedience. Because when you look at Kampala, Kampala is totally surrounded by Wakiso. When you take a Jinja Road, you find Wakiso. When you take a Bombo Road, you find Wakiso. When you take Entebbe Road, you find Wakiso. When you take a Jinja Road, I said you find Wakiso. Masaka Road, you find Wakiso. Mitiana Road, you find Wakiso. Now, we needed the Kampala and the entire periphery of Kampala. That would be Wakiso. It really never happened. We deliberately frustrated the project of MPs buying food supplies to their constituents, and that would relieve the government of that much responsibility. But refusing them put all of the central focus on this, and all of these people are going to campaign saying we are supposed to give you food, but you see what happened to Zaffe. He was punished for giving you food. So we didn't give you food, so the blame is on His Excellency, who deliberately set the rules to refuse you people, to refuse us to distribute food to you. Now all of that politicking is going to happen, whether we want or not. Now there are people who donated the food and all that. It never was talked about. Now I'm talking about the grassroots politics that and the demands that are really going to happen.
I understand, Professor. Please go ahead.
Now, when you look at what is happening in the quarantine center, and those people who come out, their complaints that people get 1 meal a day, they are no basic supplies that really help to cap down the spread. That in case one person was positive in the quarantine center, it would actually force everyone to go through a fresh quarantine period. So if somebody is tested at day 8 and if it's found positive, all the people, the roommates and those that's been working with, they restart afresh. Well, they take this one away for treatment, then the other one restart for another 2 weeks after expiring a week or more. So it becomes 3 weeks. Now their supplies, they are very limited, and these people are recording most of these events and communicating to their families. So now we have a very great challenge on this. The impact may not be felt now, but in 3-4 months, and that is the campaign time, we are going to have a very, very bitter pill to swallow. So that is what I'm also looking at. So we have to be extremely very careful to see that we don't slumber at this time. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Exactly, Professor. Now I also have a challenge that I'm going to my constituency. But actually people are still demanding the same. We never received the food. Where are the masks? And we really need support. We have so many teachers in those areas. The border cyclists are also complaining that really most of us who have been ejected from our stages, the police is always disturbing us, giving us constant headache from the unprecedented arrests that happen and the penalties that it comes with to repossess our motorcycles once they are capped. So the whole thing is becoming a problem, and yet they are having clients who say, you see, I cannot sit on that motorcycle with a mask because this and that happens, but we are operating in danger. So these are the things which are really tormenting everyone, and we need a common man's resolution that can help, especially at such a period when you are going into the campaigns. Now His Excellency comes up with a law with a directive to all the police that arrest anybody who brings up people to converge together. It is a very good move to calm down the spread of the COVID-19, but how practical is it? How many people are you going to arrest if we must ask that question to give it a practical perspective? How easy is it? You see, there are already several mistakes that have been made and cannot be recorrected. Now, if the front runner who was supported by His Excellency Dr. Diana, not really Dr. Diana, Dr. Acheng Ruth, did that, that was the turning point to the entire country when they came to think that now that the whole minister in charge of COVID-19 can do such a thing even without a mask. Is coronavirus really in Uganda? That was a question in both the conscious and the subconscious mind of every individual in Uganda who has been hearing about the news. Now, people relaxed, and the relaxed was originated from that scenario. And we really have to understand that. Secondly, the way the money was routed, actually, personally, I couldn't believe. And the fact that His Excellency did not take a drastic action proved the point. That is what some people are calling it a corruption-demic, meaning that it is a corruption project. The pandemic has been the root of climaxing corruption in Uganda, and minus the action of His Excellency. That is what the people are saying. Thirdly, the fact that a lot of money was released and a lot of loans were acquired. Almost every week there was a COVID-19 loan approved. And now Murago is crying they have never received any money. Some treatment centers are saying they are short of money. Some doctors are complaining of delayed allowances and salaries. Now the central question is, where is the money? So that is where the problem is. The actual problem is, forget about the shallow bit that can easily be countered with political sentiments and the political gimmicks. That one is a very different and a far a deep rising consciousness that can really stray the mass mind into something undesirable. I hope that can be understood. If we can take on this, the better. If we cannot take it on, then we expect worse news from this. So now where does that leave us? For us, we are candidates. We are candidates. Where does it leave us? Because now we are looking at, yes, if at all it happens that way, and the people are complaining, yet the actual spread of COVID-19 is a reality. And the lockdown can really bring out something else, because if people are committing suicide, girls are getting pregnant, there is a lot of domestic violence penetrating through the apex, and we are seeing family breakdowns because of lack of finances to run homes, a lot of divorces, and so much. So where does it leave us, the candidates? What are we going to tell the people? And during the campaign, what are they going to ask for in particular? So those are the capital questions we are looking at, that we need to iron out ourselves, that we need to give focus on. So these are the things we are looking at really. and we don't have a particular direction to get a groundbreaking solution and the final solution to that. So anyhow, it happens. It happens. So let us try to see how to go about whatever comes. After all, this is our country. These are our people. We are also Ugandans. We can share the same pride and move through. At the end of the day, we find a possible solution that can amicably bring hearts together. That is what I'm looking at.
So now, Chairman, there are particular things that we have always been trying to maneuver over, but fail. The first thing is how to bring a clear leverage to the fellowship and its activities vis-a-vis the first-class citizens of the fellowship, the first-class members. The middle-class members, we seem to have a lot of disgruntlement that remain unsettled, and yet we need a settlement plan for them. And finally, we have pending projects that we should never forget to discuss, because they really contain the way forward of what we want to push us to where we want to be. So much has to happen, because it must happen. Somebody from National Water came and told me they received a notification telling them that there is some money that is coming in there. And you know who's responsible for National Water? Umeme was also told that the Ministry of Energy is going to demarcate $2 million to do some repairs and some electrometer replacement for their car. $400 million is on the way, and the biggest project Uganda is going to embark on, about 1.57 trillion Uganda shillings, is on the way. By 5th September, it will be under disbursement for project work. Now we have all of this together. But there are still 4 firing projects in the mind of His Excellency. The first year has not come to the conclusion of those who procured the reagents and the testing kit for COVID-19. Number 2, there is no conclusion for the 8 billion that was stolen from the food relief, accounting for only 51 billion. Number 3, he has not figured out where the money that was demarcated for Ministry of Education to work on the education curriculum and the reopening of the schools and the academic year. And finally, the committee cannot account for the expenditures that were sent to the local governments to help in different procurements and in observation of the SOPs in the respective districts. That was for COVID-19 sensitization. And the 5th to annex on these ones, even some departments of security. And for the field officers, some of them missed their allowances all through the period of the lockdown. So now the question in His Excellency's mind, how much more can we release to close the gaps? And in the case a lockdown became inevitable, what would be the repercussion? Because all of the projects that had been proposed, His Excellency thought the money was there, but it was all squandered into other things. So the traders are waiting for the money, which is not there. The creative artists are also waiting for money, which is not there. The banks were waiting for money which is not there. The landlords in town were waiting for money, it is not there. All of the sector, all the promises go empty, and even the hopes are dissolving, are diminishing into thin air. So His Excellency cannot figure out how to handle the next lockdown in case it became inevitable. Because there are higher chances that a lockdown can force the population to think otherwise. They cannot withstand the next. They are like, we don't fear COVID-19, we only fear a lockdown. After all, a lockdown, you're sure that poverty is going to increase up to around 50%. But with the entire population affected with COVID-19, you are certainly sure that 99% will survive. So now people like, let COVID-19 come. After all, we can bear with HIV. We could bear with hepatitis. We are bearing with cancer. We are bearing with diabetes. We are bearing with malaria and the other things. So what the hell is COVID-19? So that is the mindset of most Ugandans. And we have to be very careful about that when going to campaigns. So for you campaigners, you have to be very much aware of that people are very hungry and they are needy. Your appearance in an area will force them to converge. Nobody will stop them. Nobody will stop them. And if you don't allow them to converge at least at minimal levels during campaigns, don't expect them to show up for elections. So all those things put together, we need to understand there are several things that need to be addressed.
Actually, that is also one of the things I was trying to look at. If they get to know, because you announce to them that actually I'm going to appear on a certain radio. Now if it is within your constituency, they will have to come, whether you want or not. If you're going to organize for a meeting to meet your agents, it is not supposed to be at home. Sometimes you need to hire an open space where you could go. They will still converge. So the police will have a very strong task if it's to handle such a situation in any way, because it is not going to be as easy as it is presumed. It is going to be very devastating and tiring to the police and other security agencies, because people are needed. They really want to see that candidate so they can get the chikumi. That is the way, and there is no way we can escape this. Now the problem about the accountability of the previous operation of COVID-19, really, I personally don't know how to overcome that. It is some kind of powerful situation I personally don't know how to overcome. I don't know really. Because sometimes you find that it's inevitable. We may need a lockdown, or a partial lockdown, or a zone lockdown. But we cannot leave it open. People care less about anything. People are looking for what to feed their children. People want to clothe their children. People want to feed and treat their children. People are sick, they need treatment for themselves. So really putting all this together, there is a lot that need to be interpreted in a common man's mind. But now, because nearly each and everything was stolen, and it was an in-house operation, not much can the president do. That is why openly billions were stolen, but we don't have anybody in the prison over the same, except for the Guwa and others who landed their way there regarding how the food was supplied, and some other utilities that had been given ended up in people's homes, officials' homes. But really, those are the things that normally happen. There was no strong purpose to that. The person, you know, actually they are innocently, many of them were innocently arrested. So anyhow, that is the life we lead, and we don't have much to do about it. But we shall see how to maneuver. I believe there are certain things we need to address together. certain things we really need to address. And there at one moment shall be a way. There shall be a way to do this whole thing. I know that. I know that.
So as we are thinking through, we should also think about our future. As in the videos, you see all these are temporary things. All these are temporary things. At some moment in time, they must vanish. And you know that.
Obviously, anything that has a beginning, obviously has an end. There was a start of the regime. There should be an end of the regime. There is a birthday and there is a death day. So that is part of nature. And it cannot be opposed, it cannot be overturned or reciprocated. That is the way to go.
So which means there are certain things that we should never give up on. We only have to keep on the pace, but observing the principles of having a correct and the upright legacy. If we really get to that point that you have an upright legacy to leave behind, then you are good to go. You don't fear death or any kind of trouble because you list minimal trouble in life. So I have always tried my best to see that we have a mitigation point to all of the troubles that we are faced with. Only that with the few challenges that always spring up because of the greed of our first-class members of the fellowship and their authoritarian approach to each and everything, observing impunity. At least we had tried to intermingle and intertwine different scenarios and come out with productive strategies that don't hurt the economy, except when the extreme authorities are applied. So,
I didn't understand you were there, but I hope, okay, I hope I can get a grasp of it, that we have really tried to condense or to absorb the pressures and the shocks that come with the authoritarian first-class masters whom we have, who don't care about the damage they cause to anyone, be it a person, the economy, or even an institution.
Exactly, that is what I was saying. No, before you continue, you see such damage has been very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. I can say it is extremely dangerous because all the dent on His Excellency, all the dent of corruption is rooted from one point. I have to tell you this, there is not a single corruption scandal that has happened in this country and it goes unchecked unless it is rooted from the top fellowship members. Because for them they have the connection, the power, authority, and the impunity to override anybody who tried to pursue them. There is only one person they fear, and that is His Excellency General Yowerika Museveni. But even him, they try to dodge around and render him actionless. And he only talks about advising them and redirecting them on how to behave. But they never stop. Now our presence and activity has really helped to make sure that the damage doesn't go so deep and the wave or tide doesn't rise so high. Otherwise, without all of that, we would have a very different platform in Uganda. And I believe the public would be charging against the authority to overthrow the regime over just corruption. Because sometimes I call it greed unchained, that even personally I sit down and I just nod my head in amazement and disagreement when I see things happen and I cannot dare talk anything because I needed to always preserve my position And my importance to see that I try to mitigate each and everything and put the house in order even when the disorganizing force remains active. So I normally do that.
Actually, Professor, that is one of the things I admire you about. Even when the storm and the tide is so high, you try to condense and maneuver. You find the viscous force to go through all of the challenges that show up. Anything that becomes apparent, you remain a strong force. And really, your approach has always been reaping very good results, very fruitful, if I may say. So we need to embark on our projects as well to make sure that at least we have a particular direction and we get a very proper way, because we need the results in this. We don't need to step aside in any way. So I believe in you. I trust in you, and I really understand you. So I hope we can face this challenge together, and we take up, because we see the reality and the course of each and everything is really going to be a very powerful force, and that we have to give us a very particular direction where we are going to reap so much. Really, thank you for the efforts. You always put my mind in order. You always put my focus in order. And you always give me the momentum that I have. Otherwise, I would have been a very depreciated person. And actually, my mind by now would be rusty and dilapidated. But you kept me upright. So thank you very much for always rebooting my mind into proper thinking. I'm very glad.
Not at all. Not at all. You have been very supportive. And I know we are going to make it. We are going to make it. I don't know if you have any update from Andrew's side to try to see how far we can go.
Actually, I supplied him with all the information that he needed. So he's trying to come up with an article that we can distribute through the media. So he's making the write-up. We managed to dig out some information. But that's what you gave me. So he's working on it. I believe and I hope to fetch him up around the 9 p.m. Yes, we are going to communicate. He wants to come with a masterpiece that can be unchallengeable and spot on and very attractive, because we need to get the attention of this engineer Rutuama, so we can become part of his social system as a good PR management team. And I believe it is going to work out very well. Very, very well. I believe it is going to work out very, very well. So that is what I'm waiting for. Then I'll get to inform you about it, so we can have a common way forward. So that is the major thing, actually. I would thank you for the time you have given us. The younger man has already gone to start off with his operation work. I believe we are going to have very good results.
That is my prayer always. You know, it is a challenging moment, but we have to fight harder. We have to strive better. We have to be stronger. And we have to remain very focused, because the moment you lose focus, you lose direction. And when you lose direction, you lose importance. And when you lose importance, you become hopeless. And when you become hopeless, you become useless. So those are the things we have to always juggle through. You see, all the people have become very hopeless, they're very useless. See how Professor Bukenya is trying to rise from his slumber, a very useless man. I don't know how important he can become, but I still believe he's very useless. He missed the point, he strayed from the point, and he totally lost hope. He turned himself into a beggar, and at the end of the day, he got a broken home. He humiliated himself. He demeaned his wife. Really, all that comes from becoming useless, and is a result of hopelessness. And that is when he lost focus and then direction. So we should always work towards that. At my age, if I risk anything, I risk my life. If I live a careless life, I lose my legacy. Now for you in your middle ages, you still have a lot of energy and you still have a lot of observation points to take note of, to concentrate on and make productive each and every step you take in life. So you are very important, a person in this fellowship, and you have to know that responsibility you have, but never stray, and never allow to be misled, because your responsibility can highly turn you into a prisoner. And becoming a prisoner, you lose the legacy. You will lose yourself, so you have to remain a very important person. There are higher chances you're going to be in the cabinet, whether you become an MP or not. The bidding has been done so well, the recommendation is very clear, and your role so far served in this regime can speak for you. And they can project you to cabinet, or at least make you a state minister. So in this regard, whatever the projects we are going to embark on, in area we have to be very careful. Don't use any brutal force to access anything, at least not now. I beg you, not now. Try to preserve yourself completely out of brute.
Thank you, Professor. That is a very truthful observation. And actually, you always give me that proper hope, and the live hope, and the practical hope. I cannot mess my life at this time. I have seen Tamare fight me. I've never fought back. Because to some extent, Tamare's agitations have been a compass to my life. Even my wife was telling me, you hear what Tamare Mirundi is saying? You need to reposition yourself. And indeed I repositioned myself. And now I'm moving in what I believe is the right path. I will no longer be used. Because, Mr. Tamare Mirundi had the little knowledge that we were somebody's tools. And we became tools because we needed to survive. I have the temporary projects that we are closing down. And yet I have a mountain of responsibility in my family, in my projection as a member of parliament to become. So all of that really had to force me into a certain level, into a certain corner, and I had to be subservient to the power that be because of the opportunities that it came with. But in Tamare Mirundi's thumping to my head, he never realized and put all that in consideration. All he meant was to hit, and thinking that I'm the chief thief, as if I own any tangible wealth. I don't have any reasonable wealth. Like he would make the public to believe I'm also a survivor like a common man. It is only our bosses who are wealthy billionaires. For us, we are just strugglers sketching life out of the scramble. So anyhow, I don't blame Tamare for his, but whatever he has said has given me direction. He has created an inner compass into my life. Because he has already said that when things stray off the normal course, we might see dead bodies, and that is a proper point to note and actually concentrate on and to reflect in our mind while stock taking. So it is a very important point, and I've learned a lot from him. So I don't regret him fighting me, but I've learned a lot from him fighting me, and I would one day thank him for whatever he has done to redirect my life to a positive direction. And above all else, Professor, you are the best partner I've ever got. You have really mentored me, you have rebuilt me, and you have made me be very powerful a person. And I still hope a lot to come from you.
Thank you for appreciating. Sometimes I take you as my son. So I would do only that I would wish to see my son do. And I want you to become what I wish my son to become. So I would thank you very much for appreciating, and I would still request you to follow suit and keep position and the possession of yourself. Be in that desired position for a purposeful reason and for a reasonable cause. Never stray from what you need to become. That is what I have for you, and I have to tell you I have to leave, I have to go, and attend to some other work. I'll be very glad to hear from you after you talking to Andrew to get to know how we are positioned, because very soon, most probably next week, we are having the money to rear very ready. So by the time it becomes, we have booked ourselves as the PR to the Deputy Executive Director, whom I believe His Excellency is going to make and confirm as the Executive Director of REA.